Good morning and welcome to Amplify with Lynette. And let me profusely apologize that we were and are running late. Technical problems, but it was sorted out. And at least now you know we are live. This isn't a pre record. So if you have any questions, you are most welcome to put it in the chat. If you are watching on YouTube, I believe you might have some problems getting your questions to the studio if you are on Facebook. And this is all because of StreamYard's upgrade. But the important thing is we are having this discussion and we're having it with Basil Manuel. Basil is from NAPTOSA, the National Professional Teachers Organization, and Vanessa Leroux. She's commonly known in the Western Cape as the Skwela Auntie, the auntie from that whose business is education and anything school related. Concerned parent, but definitely an activist when we start talking about education. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Basil. Vanessa, thanks for joining me on Amplify with Lynette. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Lynette. Good morning,
And
Mr.
it's actually
Manuel.
Pleasure to be here.
it's quite exciting that I used to talk to you on radio, but I now talk to you on radio in studio, but not in the formalized atmosphere that we are used to. But thank you so much for your time. It's a very pertinent discussion to have right now. Basil, a lot of people seem to be shocked that this has come onto the agenda. But these discussions about teacher reductions started, and if I'm not mistaken, in 2023 already, and schools were notified in December last year. So why is everybody up in arms now?
Lynette, a little correction. Yes, it started in 2023. And of course, the whole story about austerity has been around for a little while. But we had a formal meeting, and this is where we make distinctions between the informal discussions that are happening, and you hear things in the corridors, but a formal discussion between the unions. The Director General headed it, but it was done under the auspices of the LRC. And then, of course, present too were the heads of department from the various provinces. One or two of them had representatives and weren't there themselves. And then, of course, Treasury was also there. And to explore possible ways to mitigate what could be the fallout of austerity. And that is important to underscore there. We'll talk later about what actually transpired at that meeting. Schools were not formally informed. I don't believe that they were. But in some provinces like KZN, for example, that was already in trouble with money and had already expended more than they had in the budget. The schools there were being informed. But uniformly, no, I don't believe that there was a formal communication. Formal communication started this year with the process of the MTEF, the Medium Term Expenditure Framework, where annually we get together to decide on the basket of posts. And normally, as unions, our job is to defend how many teachers we need and to, of course, try to get a better deal out of it. But of course, it's linked to the budgets. And this time, the province, the Western Cape, today, the Eastern Cape will make its announcements, and in the next 2 weeks, we will see a number of other provinces doing likewise. In a chat with the HOD of the Eastern Cape yesterday, she gave me a figure, but of course, we were chatting informally, and they
Yes.
too have trouble in terms of their budget. And what the impact will be, she will make that announcement later today. So it's been a long time coming, but it goes against what we asked for in that meeting that I referenced earlier on.
Can you just, before Vanessa comes in and shares her opinion, give us a sense of what you had asked for in that meeting? Because it does seem that let's not say everybody and generalize. It seems as if the Western Cape Department of Education is saying we have no choice. The national budget was minimized, reduced, and we face to have to make do with what the hand that we've been dealt with. Is that really true?
I have a different opinion. Let me be emphatic about that. But coming back to the meeting, first of all, one of the things that we put on the table, we were being asked, really, the question was, how do we manage this? Where do we cut? How do we try and work within this? And our view, not only as NAPTOSA, but the collective of unions, was clear. We said this is a cut to your total budget. It's not a cut to education per se. First point.
Mm.
So instead of doing the simple thing, now that the two things mean very different things, but it's simplistic to say, let's cut a certain percentage from every single budget, depending on the size that the budget has, and then it's equitable. That's not equity, because education by its nature will have the bigger budget. It can't take the bigger cut. Why? We put on the table that what we should do is protect the social departments, the departments that have a social outreach. It wasn't about education. Whilst we were in an education discussion, we said, let's protect health, let's protect police, let's protect education as examples. There are departments
Yes.
that can do with less because they work with a smaller field. But when you touch these social departments, you are actually impacting a much wider group of people. And that was what we put on the table, and it was universally embraced. Then, now we start seeing that, in fact, people did do the simplistic thing.
I'm wondering if the other provinces waited to see how this plays out within the Western Cape. Is that why they've delayed their announcements, Basil?
It's very difficult to answer on their behalf, but let me put it this way. No, I don't think they waited necessarily. The Western Cape has a habit of running ahead. And when you run ahead, you will get the wind first. So I'm not saying that that was really the case, but I'm saying they are always. I think the Western Cape does have a better administrative machinery, and that maybe
Mm.
does allow it to
How
seem speeded up. And but the others, although slower, are going to hide behind the wave that hit the Western Cape.
mm, obviously. From and I just want to check that I've got my facts correct. It seems that the schools and the districts have already been informed how many schools have to let go of what amount of teachers, and if there aren't any posts or positions there, they would have to go where there are vacancies. Help me to understand how was this decision made? Who goes and who stays? Is it only contract workers, teachers that are affected? What other solutions and possibilities were looked at before they came to this conclusion?
Lynette, that therein lies the operation of the Western Cape. So we are talking Western Cape specific now. I want to
Yes.
say that will not be equal in all the other provinces. May have a slightly different model that they're using. But in the Western Cape, when once you've determined the ratio, and we heard the ratio of 1:37. Now that's a systems
Yes.
ratio. It's not a class size. And there's a big difference between the two. So with the systems ratio, they have now determined, okay, so by simple division, you have so many pupils, how many teachers do you qualify for? But of course, there are other factors that come in. So I don't want to oversimplify it and ignore the fact that when you come to secondary schools, there are limitations to class sizes with schools that, for example, work with machinery and the like. So all those factors are put in. And so your pupil number is not necessarily a physical number only. We call it a weighted number. So you may have 10,000 learners, but in reality, you're counting them as 14,000 because of the weighted factors. Special schools have a much smaller number of pupils to a teacher. And that because a child, an ordinary in a special school will count for 3 children or 2, depending on the severity of the problem that they exhibit. So that is then a simple division, and every school gets a post-provisioning letter to say, based on your number, your weighted number, you qualify for X number of teachers. That happens universally across the country. The Western Cape now decided that the first people to exit will be the contract teachers, and claiming that this is not then retrenchment. That's nonsense. This is retrenchment because we are letting go of people. Now there's one or two problems with that story. First of all, these are young teachers that we need in the system. We need
Yes.
people to come in. We are busy with a whole lot of things, which I'm sure we'll address a little earlier, be it coding and robotics, be it new subjects. But they are being let go. But some of those people already qualify for permanency. And this is what we as a union are busy with at the moment, saying, let's check.
Excuse me, is this where the conversion to permanent posts came in, that discussion?
Yes. So you see, now we are arguing, and this is in trying to save every post, that what is the date you used for exit? If it can't be now when letters are released, it can only be 31st of December. If any people qualified by the 31st of December for permanency, they must be made permanent. Now, having removed people that are now deemed to be contract workers, they're gone. But you may have a school where everybody's permanent, but they still have too many teachers. So somebody has to be identified in surplus. And that person will have to go to a school close by, suiting their particular qualifications, etc., for absorption. Now, you see, in theory, it sounds okay, and you are working as though every school is adjoined to another and in close proximity, etc.
Or equal in terms of
Or
resources and accessibility.
And you are going to find, because we are people, because we're a human being, you don't want to go to school that is worse off than what you've been at. That's just human nature. At the same time, uh, people are automatically unhappy. Lynette, as a former principal, when I had to absorb teachers from another school, they came as very unhappy people. Why? Because somebody told them, you are in surplus.
Yeah,
We don't have space for you. And
we
it,
don't
it has a mental effect on people. It really impacts on them. And I had to say, please don't come and be unhappy here. I'm happy to have you. But of course, it's not that easy to wipe away this feeling
let,
of rejection.
let's quickly pull in Vanessa here. What's happening on the ground, Vanessa, in terms of what are you hearing parents are saying and teachers are saying? Because this might look plausible and actionable on paper, but it has a significant effect on people's lives and livelihood in the Western Cape.
Um, uh, Lynette, at this point, I must say I'm quite surprised about how how shocking Mr. Manuel is sounding at this point, because they are the problem. Unions are the problem. Unions are the people that have us in this position. Let me tell you why. On Easter weekend, contract teachers were called in to say their services and their contracts are terminated. And now Mr. Manuel must say to me if I'm lying. In that room when teachers were notified, it was the teachers, it was union members, it was circuit managers, and it was the principal. They allowed it to happen after they had a discussion with the WCD that we will look by the end of the year what's going to happen. They were there, and do you know what they did for their members? They sent out statements. They did absolutely nothing for their members. They've plunged schools into total chaos, where schools in Atlantis had to apply for rotational programs. Matric children were affected. All of these, they were part and parcel of it. Not once did they brought a court application for their members. They knew about it. So I don't know why they sound now surprised as if they don't know about it. You didn't fight for your members. Period. Unions is a bunch of parasites that takes these people money each and every month, fly around the world doing absolutely nothing for us, and we are the ones that must suffer. So I don't know why Mr. Manuel sounds like he's the saving grace this morning. He's far from the saving grace. He's the problem. Unions is the problem at this point. And let me tell you what Mr. Manuel don't say, because and 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 I must say, I'm not at this point going to be diplomatic about anything. What he don't say is that the DBE have warned the Western Cape for a number of years. Please make your contract people permanent because it's much more expensive. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. On Easter weekend, almost 1,000 teachers were fired. They were there. They were part and parcel of it. They witnessed it. They did absolutely nothing for their members. Absolutely nothing. They go on radio shows. They send out statements as if that will stop the WCD from doing anything. If the
I'm going to allow
WCD
him
makes
in a moment Vanessa, I'm going to allow him to respond in a moment, but I want you to complete your thought. Also, talk to me about what the response and the reactions have been thus far, since specific numbers have now been released.
and we knew since that first term, we knew it's going to be over 3,000 teachers that's going to be let go, and they've allowed it. The batch that was getting rid of, they spin it and say, oh no, it's administrative thing. They are going to bring these teachers back. Did they come back? And I told communities, are you really believing these lies? Are you really believing these lies? So, Mr. Manuel, Satu, all these other unions is a bunch of parasites that don't care for education. They just care for their paycheck and flying around the world on people's salaries. And you know what makes it worse? This doesn't happen to former Model C schools. This doesn't happen to former Model C schools. It's happening to the poorest of poor, and they don't care. They don't care.
Okay. So let's talk about the poorest of the poor. I'm going to allow him because I don't want us to derail the conversation. I want us to focus on where we're at now. He'll get an opportunity to respond. Let's talk about the impact of what this has on the poorest of the poor, as you reference, Vanessa.
Lynette, if anyone can tell me that a foundation phase teacher that sits with 70 children in a class can teach anything to any of those children, then they are really out of touch with what is happening. Because foundation phase is one of the most important phases. Because if that foundation is not laid properly, you lose that child along the way. That's why we're sitting with grade 6 children that can't read, because we are struggling with all these issues. The other thing that we have is you have your fetal alcohol syndrome child, you have your ADHD child in mainstream schools, where their members must now teach a special needs child that they are not trained for. So for half of that period, that teacher is struggling just to get that child to be quiet, sit down. And then for the 15 minutes, what's happening in the next 15 minutes? So at this point, I think, and I want to appeal to my community, stop believing these people, man. Mr. Manuel, Netoso always sounds like the wingman for the WCD. They always sound like the wingman, as if they must make excuses. Our rights to education for our children and in the Constitution was never attached to a budget. So don't come and tell me about a budget. They're not concerned about thousands of children that doesn't go to school each and every year in the Western Cape. They even go as far as paint this picture that it's rosy. We are 5th and 6th on the national list. And you come and tell me that the Western Cape is quicker. The Western Cape is quicker in making our children dropouts. That's what it is. And someone must tell these people you are parasites eating your members' money. Period.
There's a comment from Lynn Goodman. I would also like to know from the union if that is the truth, Mr. Manuel. I've heard teachers are talking that unions have sold them out. Is that true? So let's combine Lynn Goodman's comment
Lynette,
and Vanessa's
yeah.
point.
And my reply to the attack by Vanessa, Lynette. Honestly speaking, I think we can address this emotively, but Vanessa is taking some liberties, and she's not correct. And Lynn, I will tell you that it's not correct because there are certain things that where we've enmeshed the truth with some license there to stretch it. First of all, how do the unions possibly control the fiscus or control government? We don't. We stand up against them and we fight against these very things. And this is the very thing we are doing. Do you honestly believe, Lynette, that, uh, or as Vanessa says, the Constitution doesn't say that that we will be controlled by a budget? How in heaven's name can there be no rules and regulations that control it? There's a certain amount of money coming in, but we have fought to get the biggest slice. When initially the MTF said we must have at least 40% of the budget, we fought for that and we got it. We have a big slice. But yes, it is true that the Western Cape has made serious errors. And we have stood up and we have fought against that. Children not being admitted late into the year, like in Gauteng. And we have fought against that all the time. There are some mitigating factors, but no child can be without a school. But to call unions parasites because we have to sit down and
Yes,
we have to fight, what is it that one has to do? You can't go to the streets all the time, and neither is that desirable because the very child that you're trying to protect will not be taught. When we come to pupil-teacher ratios, every year it's an issue. Every year we have to deal with it. And when we have stopped this time and time again, now the economy is in a mess. Everybody knows that. And the reality is that we have tried to find the best route out, but we haven't been heard. We haven't been listened to. If Vanessa believes every time we open our mouths, everybody listens and does what we say, then she's delusional. It's not true. It doesn't work like that, not in the real world where I am. In terms of pupil numbers, of course, that's the very argument we are using, that there's a very big difference between teaching and crowd control. And when we look at the numbers increasing into the upper 40s and so on, and what Vanessa is correct about is that it punishes the poorest of the poor the most. All schools will lose teachers, but there are schools that can afford to replace those teachers with governing body paid teachers. The school that can't afford to do that simply has to increase the class size. And that's what we are fighting about. If we want equitable education, we have to look after the poorest of the poor. They have to get a better ratio. They have to have be protected against the fallout that comes like this. So,
But
and even
sorry, let's quickly talk about the class ratio because what I heard
mm,
is that in some schools and some classes, you have between 40 to 60 pupils that one teacher needs to teach. I don't know what kind of quality education you can
yeah.
under those circumstances actually have, but with this reduction of more teachers, that is likely to increase to up to 100 children. Is that
Lynette,
far-fetched?
well, I don't believe it's completely far-fetched, but let me tell you what happens when you do things on paper versus the real world. On paper, they tell us it's a ratio of 37 to 1. We know that when you take that to class sizes, remember on paper, the class size will come to 45. That's ridiculously big. 45 to 46. That is what it will really translate into. Why? Because that ratio includes advisory services, includes your principal, includes your departmental heads and everything that have to be given time for the management of the school. So when you start taking that out of it, of course, the class size starts growing incrementally. If the school happens to be in an area where the school doesn't have enough classrooms to accommodate the number of children enrolled, the number of pupils increase in the class. That is how it works in the real world. And we have fought against that. We've said the Western Cape, for one, continues to say that it has the ability to build schools relatively quickly. We said then we need those classrooms at those schools that are overcrowded, because we need to ensure that overcrowding is reduced. But we have overcrowding, and all provinces have some really bad spots where there are where there's really bad overcrowding, and it's those children that will suffer more. But I have to make the point about special ed because it's incorrect, ladies and gentlemen, ladies rather. It is a world standard where children that are mildly impacted by whatever deficit have to be integrated into schools. We have fought against it, not because we don't believe it. We have fought against it because we don't have the type of class size where you can integrate the mildly affected children. The special ed child still needs special attention. And in a class of even 40, that child will slip through the cracks. And this makes nonsense of the fact that we want to try and have a curriculum that caters for every child, because we know that will happen. So it's not the unions that create this. This is created by the department, and the unions are the bulwark between the department and, of course, how it impacts on communities. Without the unions, the department will run riot. Parent bodies have to ensure that they are also standing up. And quite honestly, our governing bodies are not of the strength that they do this. They sometimes try, and there are some that are really good, but the majority aren't. And they can't then say, we have sold you out.
Vanessa had said earlier that the previously model C schools are unaffected by these cuts.
In the manner that they could possibly afford to replace where the cuts are. But so the cut happens, but if you have the financial muscle to re-employ somebody or to employ somebody else in the place as a governing body employee. So it's not true that they're not affected. They're affected by what the system says. But if you can replace the teacher, the impact is not on you. The impact is on the school that can't. And the vast majority of our schools cannot. And we will, and that is why we stand apart. That is why we're trying to save every post, hold the department responsible for every single teacher that is lost. We've declared a dispute. We're going into dispute about the logic of it, and not only the logic, whether they have looked at every avenue. They've got to prove to us that they've looked at every avenue to try and prevent this from happening.
What's the conversations that are happening
Thank
at the
you.
schools right now, Vanessa?
Lynette, let me just come in there. Mr. Manuel feels I attack him or I attack the unions. I'm not going to be apologetic about what I'm saying, because what Mr. Manuel is saying is the diplomatic nonsense, while we are sitting with a total implosion of education. Mr. Manuel is still talking about 40 to 45 class sizes. In Afrikaans, we would ask, wanneer laas was jy by die werk? Wanneer laas was jy by die werk? Because we are sitting with 83 matric learners in one class. 83. It's impossible for any.
Which school is that? Sorry, Vanessa, and which area?
I'm not going to make it. It is in the Western Cape. I'm not going to mention because I know the victimization is real for teachers too. But we are sitting with 83 learners in the matric class. So, wanneer was Mr. Manuel by die werk? He's saying no, but the departments don't always listen to us. That's why you take your members' money. So if you don't listen, if they don't listen, and you are what really want to fight for your members, then you challenge the law. Ons toy nie meer nie. Because there's laws that protects us. And from a parent's perspective, the thing is with unions, you are bothered with issues that's not your issues. It shouldn't be your issues. Budget cuts shouldn't be your issues. You are educators that wants to be politicians with our children and the dreams and the lives of our children. And what you don't know, even if a child is not, if a child is not in school for a week, that child becomes a target for the streets. That child becomes a target for those who is having their eyes all the wrong elements. So no, Mr. Manuel, you're not doing anything, because if the department don't listen to me, and you have the money because you collect it from your members each and every month, why didn't you take
So are
them
you
to court
saying
yet?
that's what I was
Why
about to
didn't you
ask?
take
Is
them
that
to
what you
court yet?
suggest, Mr.
Why
Vanessa,
Manuel?
wasn't they in the first place for the first? Because you knew that first 1,000 people, you knew that they have diverted from the conversation and did what you didn't agree on. Why didn't you take them to court for your members? You are doing nothing.
Vanessa,
So please don't tell me
Vanessa
about
seems to
they are not
Okay,
listening
Vanessa,
to you.
let's
Please don't tell me they are
give
not
Mr.
listening
Manuel.
to you. They don't listen to
Let's
me
give
either
him,
all the time.
and
unless
why
you
don't
go.
they listen to you, Vanessa? Because you have the power of the parent. You say we've got the power, you too have the power. So why aren't they listening? Because not because they're only belligerent, they are that. But here's our other reality. The head of
But I
department
don't
of
take
education
parents' money.
says,
Parents don't pay me money every month to defend them.
and they
But
don't
your
only
teachers
pay
do pay your
only
money,
for this.
pay money to
No,
you
of
to
course
defend them.
they do, because of the service we give. Now, Vanessa, you've
Exactly.
got to give me a chance to finish my point.
No,
I'm
you've
saying
interrupted me now. You've interrupted me now. We
I'm
can't even be
speaking.
compared to each other. We can't be compared. I
Okay,
don't
hold
take
on.
parents'
Let's
money.
let's let's get
Vanessa,
to the question that you stated, Vanessa. Mr. Manuel, Basil, why, when this happened, the first 1,000 that Vanessa referred to, when you were in that room with the various um, partners, why didn't you take it further then? Why should we be in this position now, scrambling, looking at consequences when there was an opportunity to stop it or to challenge the decision that was made?
we stopped it, Vanessa. Is that not true?
How?
Because nobody lost their posts then, because
No,
we
you lie,
managed to stop it.
Mr.
And it's
Manuel. You lie. I can
Hold on,
tell
let
you
him
if
let
how many teachers lost their jobs.
Vanessa,
You are lying now.
just let him complete his thought, and then you can respond. Basil, continue, please.
you see, Lynette, Vanessa's saying a lot of things that I have to correct. Uh, First of all, the very head of department comes to you and then quotes from the act, the Exchequer Act, to say he can't spend what he doesn't have in his budget. And it doesn't matter where we go. We've lost a case in the Constitutional Court about the same thing, trying to make government pay for what they say they don't have money for. We've lost it. We paid. We went to the courts. So let's not be so simple. So we've burnt our fingers once. So the easier route, and the route that is the most effective, is to go the route of demanding that we see exactly how we have come to this point. And that is why we declare a dispute, which we've done, and other unions have done too. So we can hold the department to account. Don't for 1 minute believe that we only have good players and everybody's honest and they share everything. They don't. We like schools get information sometimes when already a couple of decisions have been taken, and then we start challenging them because we are the representatives of those people. We start challenging them, we hold them to account, we try to mitigate the outfall, to try and lessen it. And that is why we are trying to ensure that everybody who should be appointed can be appointed. This fight is not a Western Cape fight, it's a national fight. And that is why we will go to every province to do a similar thing. If it was so simple just to say, start fighting, start making a noise, everybody would be doing it. Do you honestly think that we haven't consulted legally? Of course we have. And we've had to consult so that we know what we can and what we can't do. One thing we don't want to do is to shut schools down. You can't do that and limit the life chances of people. That is not the game we play. It is very easy to throw stones when you are sitting with half a story. And of course, Vanessa is very, very taken up by the fact that our members pay fees. Everywhere people pay fees, but it's not the only thing they pay fees for. They pay fees for many, many things. Now, in terms of a class size of 83 for a matric class, I'm shocked. I wouldn't know about it because nobody has raised a class of 83 with us. I can't dispute that it exists because I don't know. But I can tell you that we mustn't listen to half a story. When I said this is what it translates into, I specifically added this is the paper exercise. The reality is a bit different. And maybe Vanessa didn't hear me there, but I will repeat it again. On paper, the class size is 37, but the ratio. But the class size in reality with the 37 translates into 45 plus. But of course, that is not the reality in every school because now you've got to take into account everybody else who is not in a class full time. And it's not possible for a principal to teach a full time class and still run a school. So that number starts creeping up. And yes, that's why I specifically called it crowd control. So no, Vanessa, I know schools. I've been in schools and I still go to schools all the time. You cannot try to insult me by asking, wanneer verlaas was hy by die werk? Ek's by die werk elke dag, want ek weet wat gaan aan op 'n skool. Ek het self 'n skool bestuur. En ek weet waar die skoen knyp. En dit knyp baie mense oral. And I'm telling you this, Lynette, the worst thing we can do is to fight amongst one another, throw stones to one another.
This is what I actually want to comment on. Whilst you two are bickering, and rightfully so, you're allowed and to disagree and have a difference of opinion. But how does this fighting amongst each other help the child in school or the teacher that's sitting at either university or institution where they are finishing their fourth year? How do you even envisage where am I going to work if there's a shortage of 31,000 teachers in South Africa? We in the Western Cape, there has to be reductions, and in all the other province, what is that teacher? Where is that teacher going to work? How does this in any way address the shortage that we have? What are the alternatives? It's rightfully that Vanessa should ask, what more should you have done? I think it's any teacher who pays their fees is entitled to ask those questions. Vanessa, you wanted to say?
Yes, Lynette, I think, and I think I'm okay if I speak for all activists in this field. We are always open working with these people. What is patronizing is what Mr. Manuel is doing now. And that is why our communities is in the circumstances that they are. Because they think because they have a title of a unionist and a member, they can say what they want, and we are the stupid ones. We don't know what's happening. No. We know more about what's happening than you do, Mr. Manuel, because we are in schools. You send out. No. You're not going to interrupt me, sir. No. Let me finish.
No, you can't.
We are always open. We are always open. We are always open to working together, because at the end of the day, we must preserve education for generations to come. That is our end goal. We must better education. We must give quality education, especially for those poor children. But these unions is a bunch of liars. You can go in with the biggest and the most open-hearted intention of working together. Let's resolve this. And then they go behind your back and say another thing to the department, and that's where we clash. They can't be trusted. This is a bunch of politicians. It's a bunch of liars.
Vanessa, how do you propose that the situation is addressed if the unions do not speak on behalf of the teachers who are their members? How do you propose should this either be resolved or addressed, and who should be doing it?
If you ask me what I will do, I won't trust the unionists. I won't trust the union, any union, to go to war with. What I will do is I will trust your grassroots activists, because then we fight for our children. Then we don't have to entertain budget cuts and all of that, because to us as the parents, the Constitution never says the budget allow your child can be educated. They say each and every child in this country have the right to basic education. That's all. Nothing. It's very clear about that law. These unionists, they want to complicate it. So let them complicate it on their own. What I want to appeal to teachers, because teachers call me 11 o'clock in the evening, cancel your subscriptions with these people. Because if you go to a shop and you buy a bread and that bread is old, you take it back. Why are you paying these parasites to do nothing for you? Why are you paying
Basil,
them? And then you come
I
and moan to me.
want I hear
Lynette,
you. I hear you. Basil, can
yes,
I just because I don't want to labor certain points because we really there are other issues that we need to talk about. And I cannot hold you accountable to speak on behalf of all the unions. And Vanessa is entitled to her opinion, and that's based of her experience and interactions with members of trade unions and teachers, who she hears from firsthand their experiences. I want to touch on two things, please. Tell me and talk to me about the student teachers, and talk to me about the Minister of Education saying they are now going to go to Treasury and ask them for more money. How does that? Because it feels to me that it's just the one delaying tactic after the other. You said earlier in this conversation that there will be an announcement from the Eastern Cape Department of Education, and the other provinces will probably follow suit. Where do we find ourselves? Where does that student teacher find themselves, and the principals and these bodies that need to now decide who is going to go and who's going to leave and who needs to go to a different school, if at all?
Lynette, I don't want to belabor the point, but Vanessa doesn't have a right to insult me because she doesn't know
Yes,
what
I
we do.
do.
I think she
Yes, I
knows.
do.
But
I have an
let me
opinion.
put that there. You have an opinion. It may be skewed, but that's fine. So let me talk to the question that you asked. Lynette, what we've put to the national minister, what we've put to the ELRC, is that what we are doing is more harmful to the economy than it is good. When you reduce the number of people in any workspace, you are getting less tax into the fiscus, and it is even more of a problem. But a bigger problem too. Every teacher, every single person that goes to university has been subsidized by government. And if we lose those teachers to countries abroad, as many of them will be lost, we are actually then training teachers for another country, further
Country, yes.
damaging the very economy we are talking about. We've put that on the table. Tomorrow, we go to NEDLAC, where we are going to talk to the broad labor movement about the impact this is going to have, not only on teachers, not only on a student whose life is turned upside down and they don't know where they're going to go tomorrow, but what it's going to do to the entire economy and the country as a whole. And we are now pleading with NEDLAC, the entire body of labor, and remember, it's labor, business, and government there, to stand with us when we fight the treasury to get more money, because we've got to get more money into the system, because at the same time we've got to fight for other rights of the teachers, and some of them will cost money. And we know that that is going to be the argument, that there isn't enough money, but the one thing can't cancel the other thing out. We can't have better schools with no teachers, or many teachers and terrible schools. The things have to go together. Of course, our Constitution says there is a right to education. Section 27, 28, going into 29 is very clear about the interests of the child. It doesn't, however, define the quality of teaching that must be there. And this is where our role comes in. The quality of teaching matters, and the size that we have there matters. To complete the story about what does a student teacher do now, Lynette, we've had research from Stellenbosch University that was released last year that gives a clear indication of the downward trend in teacher training, that there is a shortage looming. And that is why we are saying today, and we've said every day in every interaction, that even though some will label it differently, that we can't afford to make these teachers go. If these teachers go, the cohort of experience starts diminishing. As the older people leave, there will be nobody that would have gained that. And then when we now desperately running to put more teachers into the system, we will be a weaker system. And that has been put on the table too. Every day there has been a fight since this thing first came to light. Don't for 1 minute imagine that unions are just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. That's not true.
There was a suggestion that I saw on a comment section that asked why could they not have considered the teachers that have to go with the experience, obviously, could go on early retirement so that you can retrain and retain those younger teachers in those subjects that you mentioned, robotics and the kind of subjects that we require going forward as a developing country. What was on the table? What was negotiated? Why is everybody gunning for the easy target, which are the contract work teachers?
Lynette, when it comes to early retirement, we are caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place. We can't say that one is better than this when it's both the same things. We don't know where the shoe is pinching for those people. We don't know if they're even ready to retire. And people go off, and then retirement is hell because they just haven't prepared enough for it. So no, removing people from the system has been accepted. We haven't accepted the removal of the younger teachers or the teachers who are on contract, and some of them are not so very young, by the way. We haven't accepted that either, because there are many returning teachers into the system. We are saying none of that can be acceptable. We have to find other means. Hence, as I mentioned, we had put on the table what we thought was the most logical thing. We're not in control of what the departments do, but I can tell you that what it appears they've done is they've simply just cut on every department and not looked at the impact this has on the social parts of our existence.
So, Vanessa, what do you believe should be happening right now? Besides your fight with the unions, what would you want to see happening to either avert a full-blown crisis? Because Mr. Manuel said earlier that the other provinces will probably be announcing their teacher job cuts, etc. What would you like to see happen?
Lynette, let me just rectify you there. I don't fight with unions because I don't waste my time. I know when I waste
Okay.
my time, that's a waste of time. So I don't fight with unions. Um, at this point, I think the only thing that can happen and that will save us. And I want to ask Mr. Manuel. He mentioned that they went to the Constitutional Court and they've lost. Please let us know when, where, how, so that we can look it up under Safely, because I don't believe you do. I don't believe you did, especially when it comes to the rights of children. I don't believe you did. And you lie too easily to people. So if you ask me what needs to be done, Lynette, I don't toy anymore because I'm not wasting my time rallying and mobilizing a lot of people, going to the education department, hand over memorandum so that someone can put it in a bin. We challenge the law at this point, something that the union should do. So no, I don't fight with them. I don't even engage them unless we are on a platform like this, because the education of our people and of our children is way more too important than to bicker with them. So if you think I'm bickering with him, no, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for lies and insults, because if you lie in my face
What
and I
do
know
you
better,
what
then
do you
then
believe
you
should
are insulting me.
happen now? So what
There
do you
should
believe
be a
should happen
urgent,
now?
there should be an urgent interdict. There should be an
Mm.
application for an urgent interdict to stop these people from firing these teachers. Because at the end of the day, our children will suffer. Our children will suffer. And while we are busy seeing that we can do that, we will actually do the work of the unions too. And then I hope they get a mass reduction in members. When someone else
What
fights
should
for
happen?
them, people that don't have money, they must learn their lesson. So from parents' perspective, we must go to court. It's our children that are being affected, and no one cares. And if we don't do it now and stop them now, then it's going to escalate. We saw it for say. I've been in this field since 2012. And let me tell you, Lynette, it's not impossible. In 2012, I led the Save Our Schools campaign. We didn't have money. But we had a law team that believed in our children, and they fought tooth and nail. And we've won all our cases in the High Court against the department. So if you ask me what needs to be done, we need to stop them with the urgent interdict. And I don't believe the unions is going to do that, because they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them.
Okay, Mr. Manuel Basil from NAPTOSA and the other unions that you've been in discussion with, what should happen now to avert a national teacher crisis? Do we still wait until the other provinces announce how many job cuts they're going to have? When will the unions, when will this legal action then come?
First of all, Leanne, sorry, sorry, I'm reading something. First of all, Lynette, let me say no. We haven't sat around doing nothing. I've already explained that we have already declared a dispute. It's a legal process. Um, I don't know if Vanessa's familiar with it, but it doesn't matter. We have already done that because that is our easiest route to stop it. When I say we've been to court on many, many things. But one of the lessons we've also learned is that not every court process helps us. Not every court process can possibly help us because you then get these emphatic answers and then you are really in the dwang. So we are busy with that process. At the same time, we are busy with approaching NEDLAC, approaching Treasury, etc. We've got many, many things happening. We can't sit still. And I just to bring it back to Vanessa. In fact, this is a time when far more people start joining the union because they see what the union is doing. They don't run away from us
No,
times like this. They run to the union. And we have entertained hundreds and hundreds of people who are in this position. And why? Because they see what we can do. We can speculate about a whole lot of things, but the reality is there are some people that are actually doing the work, and that is the unions. And I'm counting NAPTOSA there. That is what we do. Because these are people that are paying us. These are people that want outcomes, and that is why we've got to fight for it. We can't just speculate all the time and hope that it falls in on the right place. It doesn't. And
Can I ask
we
you
certainly don't
to
lie.
briefly, because I've asked both of you to be available for at least for an hour. Can you speak specifically, Vanessa, from your side and Basil from your side, speak specifically to the teachers who are at these schools and might have received notification yesterday, or are like Cecilia and others who don't know what their future holds? What do you expect? What do you tell those teachers who's sitting with 40 plus 83 matriculants, Vanessa said earlier? What are you saying to those teachers? What should their plan of action be, Vanessa? Those who may not be part of a union. Basil, what do you say to those teachers whose fate lies in the hands of either the principal? I know of a teacher that has not been paid. She has 40 children in her class. She's not been paid a salary for 2 months. The principal has said, "Oh, what can we do?" Shrugs their shoulders. What can we do? It's the department. It seems and feels to me like everyone is passing the buck and someone needs to be held accountable. I want to know, Vanessa, what do you say to those teachers who are listening to Amplify with Lynette on the replay, for example, or who will hear about this discussion? What are you saying? What do they are they supposed to do in the meantime?
Lynette, at the end of the day, there's two things that I'm asking. If a teacher comes to me, are you coming as a teacher or are you coming as a parent? Because if you are coming to the teach as a teacher, then you need to go to your unions who say they are fighting for you. But if you come as a parent, we can collectively say, listen, this is our dilemma. What needs to be done? We can come up with solutions. But I'm not in the business of being abused anymore, while Mr. Manuel and all these other unions are sitting with fat egos and think they are above critique. And the thing is, they are the ones that should fight so that our children, there's the top of the chain, but our children are the clients. We are the clients, and they don't want critique from us when we see they are doing nothing. We see they are doing nothing. We see how they let the teachers go. And they think they are above critique. No, they are not above critique. So if a parent comes to me in her capacity as a parent, we are willing to sit around the table and say, hey, now we must save our children. We are in trouble. But if you think I will in any way, shape, or form trust a union, I must be crazy. I must be crazy.
Vanessa LaRue is a concerned parent, but also an activist. And we're also talking to Mr. Basil Manuel. He's from NAPTOSA, it's the National Professional Teachers Organization. There's a comment from Jeanette. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I'm going to get to yours in a moment, Stanley. Teaching should be a permanent post. Thank you also, Cecilia, for your comment earlier on. I'm going to leave Stanley's here, but I quickly want you to address what do you tell teachers that are awaiting their fate, Basil, and then we move on to Stanley's comment.
Lynette, first of all, if you're a teacher and you're one of those that has been identified and you don't believe that the process has been correct, then you come to us. We will look at every single case because that is what we do. And we will see that you have been correctly treated. And in fact, that we will also try to fight for your post because let's not believe that everybody that is moved will be outside of the system. We certainly have to look at it. And in addition to that, that is what the unions are there for. Even if you're not a member of the union, knock on our door and we will deal with it. Because we don't want you to go to somebody else that has a half-baked story that can't get into the right channels to deal with this. Let us deal with it. And everybody has a right to representation, and that is what we're going to do. And Lynette, I want to say, I can't descend to the level of name calling and I won't do that. That's beneath me. And it's a great pity that Vanessa thinks she must throw all those bricks at me, but it's fine. I'm not above critique. We, as a union, we fight off this all the time, from the right and from the left. They're all the
Yes,
same.
you think you are above critique, that's why you are addressing it, Mr. Manuel.
No,
You
my
think you
dear.
are above critique, that's why you are addressing it.
I need to pull you back. Can we focus on Stanley's comment? How come the unions allowed our education system to be captured by the powers that be to give public schools gutter-like education, starting with Curriculum 2005, a dysfunctional, overburdening system? I want us to wrap, but I want you to acknowledge
But I'd like
Stanley's
to answer
comment,
that.
and please do.
Lynette, Curriculum 2005 was one of the better parts after we had OBE, but it was far, far too much. And even the current CAPS curriculum, that is why, and a lot of our time is spent on curriculum because it is not labor that punishes a teacher. It is the curriculum, because every day they have got to go through all this together. And Stanley, if you look carefully at how the curriculum improved from 2005 curriculum to CAPS, you will see how much there's been. But there's been a disjuncture, which we are currently addressing. And the curriculum we are currently, we are not throwing out a curriculum, we are tweaking it, is to give teachers the time to do those social and soft skills which are being lost in our schools. But I want to say to you, we are busy with the curriculum. We send out information every now and again asking for you, the person in the class, to tell us what is going wrong in that specific subject you're teaching. And those are the things that we take forward. Thank you, Lynette.
I want to thank both of you for being available for the past hour. I don't want us, let's also say this to each other, this conversation doesn't end here. I don't want to take more of your time, because that was the agreement that we'd to at least talk about what's happening and where we're at and where we find ourselves, so that we are in the know when we read these publications or these stories. So I want to thank you, Vanessa, for your patience with me, and Basil. Thank you earlier on. Sorry about the technical difficulties that we had, but thank God we were able to have this conversation. If this is the first time that you are watching or listening or hearing Amplify with Lynette, this is a regular occurrence. Subscribe to the channel, please, so that you don't miss out, because we don't only discuss what's happening in South Africa or in the Western Cape. I know there's people in the Western Cape who think that they're the only people that exist, and some people in South Africa that believe they're the only people that exist on the continent. No, not really. There are other issues. So we discuss all these stories, the stories and the people that affect our lives, so that we get context, so that we can understand, so that we create a platform to engage and talk. And if we disagree, to disagree respectfully. So I thank you, Vanessa and Basil, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. There's the last comment from Lynn. CAPS, according to my understanding, is not a curriculum, but an assessment policy. Okay, thank you. Lynn is definitely, clearly teacher background, needs to be specific. Thank you, everybody, for your likes. Please like the broadcast and join us when you see our promotions for other discussions, and subscribe to the channel. Every little comment, every like, every share helps to grow the channel. It's like the whole algorithm thing. It sends a
Yeah.
message. No, there's exciting things happening here. And let me just also say, this was not staged. I mean, the fighting and the bickering and the disagreement,
No,
nothing
it
to do
definitely
with
was not.
Definitely not. So thank you so much, Basil. I'm going to invite you again when we have a little bit clarity and when we're further down the line, so that we then talk about where we find ourselves. If there is a legal process that's being followed, that we talk about that and the implications of that. Hopefully we'll have some courageous teachers who will say, listen, I want to be counted. I want to stand up. I want my voice to be heard, that we will do that. So thank you so much, Basil Apollos, and also Basil Manuel. Basil Apollos is obviously an actor, creative artist. And thank you, Vanessa LaRue. And thank you, everybody, for participating and liking and your comments, because it really is essential that we have this discussion. It affects all of us and definitely affects our children. Have a great rest of your afternoon. I'm going to say goodbye and end the stream. Thank you for all your comments and sharing and telling other people about the conversation. We'll do this
Thank
definitely
you for
again.
having us. Thank you for having us,
Thank you,
Lynette.
Lynette, and let me wish
Thank
Vanessa
you.
well too. And remember, it's curriculum and assessment policy statement. Thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye,
Bye-bye,
Mr. Manuel.
everybody.